Hey, William Gilmore here for the ScreenwritersJourney.com. It is day 164 of the journey, and tonight I went back to the Screenwriters Workshop Rewrites, which is located at the Farmers Market at the Grove here in Los Angeles. This is my third time attending that particular workshop, and for the most part, it went really well tonight. I had a good reading. I took in some fresh pages and some rewrites from the screenplay come-ups. This was the section of the script. It's a pretty substantial rewrite with the press conference that Sheriff Hiram is holding, where he reveals that he is looking for 3 men in a boat, which is Grady, Tyler, and Shep. And Shep hears this press conference on the TV and sort of panics and rushes off to Grady's house, which is a rewrite from the original, where he was already at the house, just sort of sitting by the bed waiting for Grady to wake up after the surgery. It was 3 days later. He's watching the news. It comes on, and it was a lot of exposition. With this rewrite, I changed that from 3 days to the very next day, which sort of compresses the time a little bit. Keeps the action moving forward as opposed to the sort of lull in the action, which made you question why everybody just sort of sat around waiting for something to happen and didn't leave town or whatever. So it sort of answered that question. It makes Hiram, by putting it in the press conference directly, as opposed to just flipping on the TV and finding the press conference in action. It makes Hiram a stronger character. It shows him more in control and sort of manipulating the strings a little bit. We still do sort of have that watching of the television set at Shep's house before he runs off to Grady's. But that also gives him an action, something to do. He's got to go find his brother. He's got to go tell Grady, as opposed to just sitting there and the information comes to him. They all go, let's talk about this for a little bit. So there were a lot of good things just in the rewrite itself, structurally, that I think worked well. Hearing it out loud, because this was a rewrite, the press conference was a rewrite of the new scene that I brought in 2 weeks ago. And the new pages, the rewrite, worked really well. That was one thing that kind of got some comments. They liked it last time, but thought it was a little stilted, a little too written. Didn't really sound natural, so doing some rewrite, doing some character work on that. That got great comments for the people who had heard it before. They really, really liked it. People who hadn't heard it before thought it was great, so that was good. Not a whole lot of comments on the scene with Shep showing up at Grady's house to tell him that the cops were after them, other than it was really funny. They loved the characters. It's very well defined. There's obviously propelling the story there. Just great comments all across, so no real complaints. And then picked up new scenes later in the screenplay where Tyler is forced by Shep to get rid of the drugs, and Shep is starting to get suspicious that there may be more money than Tyler's letting on. So that was a new scene I have not heard out loud either at Tuesdays at 9 or at this workshop before. So hearing those pages was good. Basically, our comments, they really like the dialogue. Flow's great. The dialect is great. They get a good sense of who the characters are. Really good rewrites on the stuff that I brought in previously. They really, really like the 3 characters of Grady, Shep, and Tyler. They're very funny. All the characters are very clearly defined. So these are all great things. And one of my problems that I had early on in coming into all these rewrites was that Grady, Tyler, and Shep weren't necessarily likable enough, that they weren't fun enough. So I think with some of the changes that I've made, they seem to be a lot more likable. There's a lot more comedy, a lot more humor with them. And since this is a pretty dark piece overall, it's good to have those comic moments. There's moments of relief from all that seriousness. Some of the negative criticisms that we got, or constructive criticisms, we'll call it. Kalita, why is she still there? We'd read the scene where It's after Hiram has confronted Raydell in his own bedroom and killed one of the deputies in front of him and Kalita, and basically, give me my money and my drugs, or this will happen to you. And then he leaves them. And the question was, okay, we understand why Raydell is sticking around because he wants to get the money, but why is Kalita still there? She's got a child. Would she stick around? I'm looking at it as it's the next morning. Maybe she would stay. She would stay through the night, maybe. Just out of the panic, not sure what to do. It does beg the question, why does she stay at this point, from this point on, though? When it's obvious that Raydell is going to stick around and do something. Why doesn't she just take Carlito and run? Not sure. Something I maybe have to look at. Things that maybe cut the sentences down. This is when they were really getting into the characters and the southernness of it, and they wanted to make them. The only way I can really put this is they wanted to make them stupider, because you knew how people in the South are. They can't complete sentences. And I was like, no, we're not going to play into that type of stereotype. Coming from the South and having lots of friends who are Southerners, we actually do complete full sentences. So, no, I did not want to make them illiterate. More about it. I'd like to know more about the Raydell-Kalita relationship. I think we have more. I think that comment was more about people who hadn't seen earlier versions or earlier scenes. We don't get a lot about the relationship between Kalita and Raydell in this particular scene because it's all been established, and so we should know. But there were questions about that, and they'd like to see more. So something to look at. Maybe I can bolster that earlier, but I think we're good. Why get rid of the drugs? That was a question that came up, and it kind of surprised me. A couple people didn't understand why Shep wanted to get rid of the drugs. And I thought that was kind of self-evident. He doesn't want any part of this. The cops are after him. The cops are after if you've got a bunch of drugs in your house and the cops come banging on your door, what's the first thing you do? They run to the bathroom and try to flush them down the sink or the toilet. You don't want to be caught with them. So I thought, I'm not sure that that's necessarily a problem, because and one of the comments that was made was that if you get rid of the drugs, then there's no impetus there for them to, nothing to carry the story forward. But they don't completely get rid of the drugs. Tyler hides one of the bricks of cocaine, and it also brought up the point of that Shep wants to burn the cash and just get rid of that as well. Yeah, he wants to get rid of all the evidence. And they're like, you can't do that, because if you get rid of the thing that sort of drives the story forward, that holds everything together, there's nothing to go on the journey with. Except that he doesn't burn the cash; he keeps it. So I didn't think that was necessarily a valid criticism. Yes, he wants to get rid of it, but he ends up holding on to it. So, and that's going to cause problems for him, because he did. And so I think that's okay. I think maybe looking at these scenes out of context may have been an issue. Those things may have come up as issues, but in the overall scope of the screenplay, I don't think that's a problem. The one other thing that happened last night, we had a new writer come into the group who had lots of comments about everybody and about how terrible our scripts were. Not necessarily content-wise, because he said my content was brilliant, but he just couldn't get to the brilliance of it because my formatting was just terrible, and he just can't see any of the writing because of the content. He's been in what he called a master class for the last 6 months, and it's been drilled into his head and how to create a script, the proper format is for it. And it has been so drilled into his head now because he has taken this master class for 6 months, mind you. And because he's taken this master class for 6 months, he knows format so well that when he looks at somebody else's script, he just can't see the story if they haven't done the format correctly that he has learned in this master class that he has taken for 6 months. If he told me one more time that he's taken a master class on script format for 6 months, I thought I was going to reach across the table and slap him. But And he was very, very, when you're in a group like that and you're trying to offer criticism, and particularly constructive criticism, where things, you hear somebody's script and it's not good, and you're trying to be polite. Yes, you want to make necessary comments, to help them improve, but this guy came out a little strong, and he had some good comments. He actually had some good notes. He could have been a little more diplomatic in delivering them to some of the folks. But he just kept harping about this script format and his 6-month masterclass, and pretty much he's an expert now in script format. And at the end of the evening, he did not have pages for us to read because he doesn't have time for reading little 10 pages at a time. He needs to hear his whole script. So what he would like to do is hand out his script to everybody. You take it home, read it, and then get back to me and give me notes. And for someone who just showing up the first time and not getting to know the other people, this is the format of the group. We do 10 pages at a time. You get some feedback on those 10 pages. You go back, you do rewrites, you do whatever. And he's way beyond that. He's way beyond the 10 pages because of this master class he's been taking. And let me just tell you, if you're going into a writer's group, you do not want to piss the other writers off on your first night there. Do not come in and be quite as abrasive as this gentleman was. And it's not that he meant to be necessarily, I don't think. I think it's just sort of his personality. He's very out there, and he was very, very, very sure of himself because, as he reminded us multiple times, he's been in a master class for the past 6 months and knows everything about there is to know about format. So, I did volunteer to take his script. Should probably cover up the name. To have a look at it, and I will say on the very first page, the very first thing on here is a script format problem. And at the very bottom of the first page is another pretty big script format problem. Now he says this is the new way of doing things, and the person he's learning this from has a very, very new way of doing scripts, and this is now the way to do it. Well, if it's a brand new way of doing it, that means most of Hollywood is not doing it yet. And a lot of these things are very specific things. He's got scene numbers in his spec script. Scene numbers in the spec script are completely useless. They're irrelevant. They make no sense because scene numbers are designed for a production coordinator and the director and the script supervisor to be able to go through and figure out what is being shot, where, in what order. You may combine two scenes into one scene for purposes of shooting. It's two scenes on the page, but for purposes on set, we're going to combine them into one scene for whatever reason, as far as the coordination. So the fact that he's got scene numbers in there that are completely irrelevant to a spec script, that's a formatting problem. Putting continues at the bottom of the page to let you know that there's another page is unnecessary because I have a script in my hand. I know there's another page. You don't need to put continued on every single page. And then at the top of the next page it says continued from previous page. Duh! I think I kind of figured that out. And having to put all those extra things in sort of breaks up the flow of the read. I hadn't even gotten into the story yet. And those are just things that are just popping out to me on the page. So I'll have to have a discussion with him about his formatting. I'm sure he's going to tell me that I'm wrong because he's been in a masterclass for 6 months and this is the new way and whatever. Just things to watch out for when you're making the journey through Hollywood. Everyone's got an opinion and their opinion is correct and you are wrong, as I'm sure if he was to watch this video and hear my comments, he would say that I'm very, very sure of myself and that I don't know what I'm talking about, and I may not. I'll straight up say that because I haven't made that big sale to Hollywood yet. And when I do, I'll tell you all about it and how it actually worked. So until next time, please check in the blog and find out what's going on with the screenplay come-ups. It's a big weekend this weekend, 3-day weekend for President's Day. It's a good opportunity for you to get your own writing done, make a goal, set out to accomplish that, and then do it. and let me know how that goes. I will keep you posted over the weekend on the rewrites on come-ups. Hopefully, and this I think seriously this time, we may actually get through the script this weekend, and we can move on to another project, start marketing for this one. It's going to be great. So anyway, until next time, I'm William Gilmore for the ScreenwritersJourney.com. Please keep up your own writing.